Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Newark and Sherwood series, a district of 84 civil parishes right in the centre of Nottinghamshire. Come with me as we delve into one of them. Right, Newark and Sherwood for you today. I've got a very interesting one for you. Now, last week you saw Cromwell. While that's got history of its own, plenty of it, this one has got heaps and heaps more. This one has its own historical society, which a lot of information in this video comes from. Thank you very much, guys. I'm in a place called Norwell, but the locals here call it Norwell. Whichever way you'd like to pronounce it, let's go and have a look at it. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Norwell is a linear village lying about 6 miles from Newark in central Nottinghamshire. Its boundaries and population include Norwell Woodhouse, a smaller settlement to the west. For almost 1,000 years, Norwell was owned by the church. Rents from land and houses financed 3 canons who lived at moated manor houses called Overhall, Palishall and Tertia Pars. The first church in Norwell was almost certainly a wooden one, probably erected as a chapel attached to one of those manor houses. Here is the current church of St Lawrence. The war memorial in the churchyard is a high runic cross. As well as those who fell in the 2 world wars, this one has the addition of one who fell in Malaya in 1952. The doorway inside the porch dates from 1150 to 1180. The walls are made of blocks of local stone, known as skerry. It was open too. When I ventured inside, I met the local church warden. I was shown a few things whilst in the church. Here's an effigy of a lady. Who exactly this is unknown, but it's assumed there's a relationship with a similar effigy of a knight in the south transept. These are so-called rood stairs, which gave access to a rood screen St Lawrence once had. Presumably, it was dismantled at the Reformation. However, a description of the chancel before restoration in 1857 mentions a screen across the chancel arch. Together with this, up on the ceiling, are some interesting carvings. Outside there's a labyrinth, not too dissimilar to Julian's Bower in Oakborough, although this one wasn't cut by the Romans. In the centre is a 2,000-year-old piece of bog oak from Besthorpe. And through these trees is a moated site. The moat is all that remains of the main medieval manor of Norwell, which was Overhall. During World War II, the central platform was used as a vegetable garden. Well, my thanks must go to Elizabeth Jones, the church warden here, who I've just met inside the church here in Norwell, who's told me all sorts of things about this place. So thank you very much for your help. Didn't know there was a labyrinth here. That's something that's going to be a massive feature in this video, I think. And the moated site, which I didn't know where that was, but I knew it existed. I just didn't know where it was before I came here. So that's very helpful. Right, let's carry on through the village and see what else we can find. The next major landmark, which I can see from here, is a windmill behind these houses. Let's go and check that out. Now we're out onto Main Street, where 3 successive vicarages can be seen. Norwell Grange was the 18th century vicarage, first replaced by a Victorian building and then by the modern vicarage in 1974. You can pick up a footpath around this point too, which will take you into an open field. It's also possible to walk alongside a stream called the Beck to get to the other end. Here we have the windmill. The mill, dated 1852, was a flour and sawmill. During the Great War, it operated with only 2 sails. The mill yard housed a baker's, a butcher's and some stables. Almost all of the buildings in Norwell are of red brick with pantiles. There are many timber frame buildings originally with mud and stud between the timbers. Most are now entirely encased in brick, but the timber can still be seen internally. There's a few striking 19th century houses, most of which were built by Henry Clipsham. That's a name that's important to Norwell. He was a local builder who also restored the church. Rather unsurprisingly then, the village is a conservation area. Okay, so much like Cromwell, this is another linear village. It's a little bit more bendy than Cromwell. Cromwell's sort of a straight line downwards, a straight road downwards. Here, this is sort of jinks left and right. It doesn't stay to one true line. But annoyingly, there's no footpath that will take me back to the beginning. So again, it's another linear village where I'm going to have to walk all the way back through the village again when I'm finished. So yeah, I'm at a junction here where you'll find a bus stop. There's the bus marshals from Sutton-on-Trent, not too far away. And there's a sign here, one for the fingerpost fans out there. Cornton and Ollerton to the left here, Cromwell and Newark to the right. And if you want to go down the other road, that will take you to Carlton-on-Trent. And there's also a defib machine down there as well, apparently, in the village hall, and that's where I'm going now. So public transport next. By bus from Newark, you're going to need the number 37A, 332 or 335 buses. The village used to be served by the numbers 32 and 33. Right next to the bus stop is the village hall, which was opened in 2004. Outside the building there's a small enclosed outdoor play area, suitable for infants. One for the cyclists amongst you too, Norwell is also on the National Byway, which we've seen a few times before. Our next stop is the former Wesleyan Chapel. Originally a primitive Methodist chapel, this was built in 1827. It was bought by the Wesleyans in 1843 and was enlarged in 1909 with a schoolroom. It became a private house in 1991. We carry on down Main Street. Norwell's Doomsday entry refers to the village as Norwell, and it mentions a church, a priest and a watermill. As well as Norwell and Norwell Woodhouse, the parish also contains a deserted village called Willoughby, which has another moated site. There are 6 of those in total in Norwell Parish. So whilst there was no village store in Cromwell, there's definitely one here in Norwell. Here it is, Brenda's Village Stores. Parish notice board is outside as well, and there's some information on it too. Let's go and have a look at that now. Outside the shop we have the parish notice board, and that's another one down in Newark and Sherwood. Now, most of the information in this video comes from something called the Norwell Heritage Trail. They produced a leaflet in 2007 which you can pick up at the church. I was given one by the church warden, Elizabeth Jones. You can also find some of the information here on this handy little map under the notice board. This next section of the walk passes some more 18th century buildings. Old Cottage, the small house you can see here, was an agricultural store. Winnie Wagstaff, a well-known colourful village character, once lived in it. Black Horse Farm is another one on this stretch which used to be both a pub and a village shop. There's only one pub left in Norwell these days. And now we come to the pub in question, the Plough. This is the last survivor of the village's 3 19th century inns, and it was already flourishing as a beer house in the year 1800. The landlords of the 3 pubs often doubled as grocers or wheelwrights and even as undertakers. There's none of that here now, but the Plough still serves the village as a pub as it always has. Now I can't honestly say there's any evidence around why the pub might be called the Plough. It's a mystery that, isn't it? It's a mystery. Now at this point Main Street meets a side road which according to the map has no name. Wikipedia lists it as Bathley Lane, but I imagine it's a continuation of Main Street. Either way, it's where the Pinfold is. An 18th century circular brick structure, the Pinfold is approximately 10 metres in diameter and is reputedly the largest round pinfold in Nottinghamshire. This plaque is a little hard to read, but it says presented to the village by the Norwell Garden Club in 1996. I assume it means the stone planter. Pretty, don't you think? We've also got the book exchange here at this point too. This is not too dissimilar to Cromwell's version. I forgot to check what was in the phone box earlier, but I believe it's empty. The allotment fans are well in today. That's our next stop as we start to venture down Woodhouse Road, and there's no doubting the name of the street this time. Now, if you follow this, you'll come to Norwell Woodhouse along an almost dead straight road that eventually meets the A616 to Wallerton via a left turn and a short stretch of Neasel Road. Okay, so I'm almost at the other end of the village. When I get to the other end, we'll be at the sports field. That's my turnaround point where I'll turn around and go back to the other end of the village to the church. This hasn't been an onerous walk actually. It's nice and flat. It's not very hilly. There's a little hill in the middle, but nothing I can't handle. It's generally speaking a very flat walk. So if you fancy coming to Norwell, you can easily get to walk from one end to the other and back again without having to break sweat really. In a few moments, we'll be touching on a local landmark that you can find at this end. That would be a nurseries. Here's a street called the Old Nurseries, suggesting it may have once been here. 100 or so metres away and we're at the sports field. Situated on the outskirts of the village, this is used by Norwell Ladies Rounders and Norwell Cricket Team. We've reached the end of the village. I'm walking back now the way I came, but there is an optional circular walk from here which runs along the beck and back to the church. Okay, now to head back through Norwell the other way. Later on, I'll be in the car and I'll be driving towards the next village, and that will involve going through Norwell Woodhouse, which you'll find that way. You've just seen it on the sign I've just left behind. That's a smaller area, but it's still got plenty to talk about. So I'll drive through it as slowly as I dare in order to put in as much information as I can in the voiceover, because there's some interesting stuff about that as well. Now, as we head back through Norwell, there's a street which I've purposely not gone down yet because I was saving it for the walk back, just so it could break up the trudge back through, as it were. And down there are 4 things of importance, and they're all very, very close together. 3 of them are to do with the school. Here's Norwell Nurseries and Gardens, described on their very own website as, and I quote, a 1-acre plants person's paradise. It was designed over 20 years and it's still being added to. As you walk back up Main Street, you might spot Schoolhouse Farm on the way, and it's not this building in shot. It takes its name from Mr. Wilson's boarding school, which existed in the 19th century. And on the school theme, now we come to School Lane, which is what I was saving for the walk back. There are no less than 3 school buildings from various points of history, all still standing here. This is the former National School, built in 1872 by Henry Clipsham. The exterior could almost be that of a typical Victorian church with Gothic windows and fine tracery. It replaced a much earlier school of 1727. This is right next door and is known as the Charity School. It was founded by Thomas Sturtevant of Palishall, and it has a schoolmaster's house attached. We'll see the modern school in a few moments after we walk down a small hill to the end of the road, catching Fair Vale, a nice little residential cul-de-sac on the way. So apart from the school, the other thing of note that's down here is this little playground. There we go. No adventure trail in this one, guys. So yeah, I can't show off my skills today. Norwell's current primary school marks the 3rd educational building along here. This took over from the Victorian School in 1965. Back on Main Street, we're at the junction with the Carlton Road once again. The house in front of you is Old House, one of the oldest brick houses in Norwell. It's got a friendly ghost apparently. There are some other properties with quirks like that here, like for example Shady Cottage, named as such due to it having a blocked central window. I spotted this too on the way back. New Image Beauty were formerly based in Newark. They're the town's longest established health and beauty clinic, having been going for 41 years. And after about an hour's walk to and from the sports field, we're back at the church. Off to the right of the church as you look at it here is Old Hall, which replaced Overhall and has a listed dovecote. Okay, we've walked all the way through Norwell from one end to the other and back again. I'm just passing the church again before I pick up the car. It's a very impressive church, that. Lots in there, lots to talk about. And there's also lots to talk about in Norwell Woodhouse, which is where I'm heading now. In the car with the camera on the dash. It's again a very linear settlement, and then we're off to the next village. And that'll be it. That'll be the parish of Norwell complete. Before I do all of that, you guys need today's picture bit, and here that comes right about now. Both Norwell and Norwell Woodhouse have a connection to the town of Southwell, and particularly Southwell Minster. In fact, it's no coincidence that the names are similar. Southwell literally means South Well, referring to a supposed holy well. Norwell's existence supports the idea of a pair of wells, these being the south and the north. Norwell Woodhouse belonged to the chapel of Southwell Minster for over 1,000 years until it was abolished in 1841. The village was known as Northwell Woodhouse when William de Melton, the prebendary of Southwell, was granted free warren there in 1309. Later in 1323, a charter roll records Robert de Wodehouse claiming free warren in the village. Wodehouse was born in Norwell Woodhouse and later went on to become Chancellor of the Exchequer in 1330. The population of Norwell Woodhouse was at its peak in 1844 when there were 156 residents. Today there are far fewer people living in the village, estimated to be less than 100 in just 25 properties. Population decline in the late 19th century has been linked to a number of poor harvests and increased grain imports from the United States. The industrial boom around this time also offered higher wages than agricultural work, and people moved from rural areas to cities in search of work. During its peak, Norwell Woodhouse was home to 2 beer houses, a hawker, a tailor, a cottager, a carpenter, a blacksmith and a butcher. A number of the original buildings are still standing today. The old blacksmith's building is next to the telephone box in the centre of the village. Of course, Henry Clipsham was involved in some of these properties as well. He used Westmoreland slate from Southwell Minster on the roof of Lower Grove Farm in Norwell Woodhouse around 1870.